Hello. Is this working? Apparently it is. All right. It's Tuesday, January 14th, 5:51 Central Standard Time. Hello, Bontrix. Let's see how we're doing. Hey, Restream, looking good. Heck, how you doing? X is rocking. Twitch, how you doing? Twitch is live. And YouTube is up and running. And so is Kick. All right. We are all rocking. Well, let's take a look. What we're coming up for our schedule. This week, Monday, yesterday, we've already done Man's Truth. Today is Take Over the World, and we're going to look at Russia's population problem. I mean, yeah, Putin's got some issues, and we'll look at those in a video by Warprints. And why are we showing that? It's all about the grandkids. All right. And I decided to change the schedule for Wednesday because this was a much better video, I thought. The PhD in Men, How to Get What You Want from a Man by Psycat. We'll show that one tomorrow. Then we've got Thursday, Relationship Truth, the 3 requirements of a good relationship by the School of Life. And then we're going to do recap on Friday, play the last week's videos. Then we're going to play on Saturday, Science Truth. We're going to follow the 4 quadrants, the map of all knowledge and human experience by the Living Philosophy. Then we're going to do something a little different on Sunday. We're going to kick off the idea of remembering best efforts. And I'm trying to create some original content. So I was messing around with, this is lower quality, isn't it? With Descript. You can see that. I'll go ahead, let you take a look here. Oh, I know. Is this gonna get audio? Ooh, I didn't think of this. I don't have that audio going anywhere. Okay, maybe maybe I'll have to play it on Descript. I don't know. Can I get a web browser link somewhere? Okay. Anyone with the link? Can I hit the link? Link. There we go. Okay, let's see what. I've never done this. Maybe I shouldn't be doing it live on the air. I don't know. Okay. Close that. There we go. All right, let's, great. Yeah, I did that, and I forgot to turn off the music. Oops. And, let's just mute that for a minute. There we go. Let's make that big.
Ever know.
Let's, bring that back. And this is the, still hope we're still in the pre-show. All right. Let's bring that good old volume up. There we go. Check it out. Imagine everything you've ever known, every friend, every family member, every triumph, and every heartbreak existing on this tiny, pale blue dot. This photograph, taken by Voyager 1 in 1990 from 3.7 billion miles away, is a humbling reminder of our place in the vastness of space. But how often do we really, really pause, think about what it means to live here, to be human, and to understand our place in the cosmos? On this speck of dust, suspended in a sunbeam, all of human history has unfolded. Every dream, every discovery, every conflict, and yet, most of us live our lives experiencing just a fraction of what's out there. Our perspective limited by what we see, hear, and feel in our immediate surroundings. Think about it. From the moment we're born, our experience of the world is profoundly limited. We arrive on this planet at a specific spot, into a particular culture, and with the baggage, both good and bad, that our families pass down to us. We grew up seeing the world through the lens of that one tiny sliver of existence. And while we might feel like our perspective is the perspective, the truth is it's just one of billions. No one sees the full picture, not on their own. This is why science, philosophy, and literature are so important. They allow us to transcend those limits, to glimpse realities beyond our own, and to understand the world is far more vast and complex than we can ever fully grasp. Here's the paradox. Even with all this knowledge, our brains are wired to divide the world into us and them. Neuroscience shows that when we see someone from our in group, a family member, a friend, or someone who shares our identity, get hurt, our brain lights up with empathy. But when it's someone not in our in group, that part of our brain has very little response. We don't just see them as different, we see them as less than human. This mindset has fueled countless conflicts, from personal disputes to wars, all stemming from the same primitive instincts. But when we step back, when we look at this pale blue dot, those divisions seem insignificant. On this tiny speck, we are all the same. We're on a fragile boat hurling through the void together. Here is something else to consider. Everything we think, feel, and do is shaped by our biology. Our brains are powerful, but they're still part of the body. When you're happy, sad, or angry, those emotions aren't just abstract ideas. They're chemical reactions governed by hormones, neurons, and electrical impulses. This means that being human is a biological experience as much as it is a conscious one. Our desires, our fears, even our ability to love and connect are all deeply rooted in the physical reality of being alive on this planet. Understanding this can help us be more compassionate towards ourselves and others, because at the end of the day, we're all governed by the same biological rule. So, what does all of this mean? It means that while we may feel small in the grand scheme of the universe, we have the tools, science, philosophy, and empathy to expand our perspective and connect with something larger than ourselves. It means we have the ability to rise above the divisions that biology and instinct have hardwired into us. This pale blue dot is our shared home. And maybe, just maybe, if we remember that, we can move through the world with a little more understanding, curiosity, and kindness. If this resonates with you, take a moment to share this video with someone who might need a little reminder about the bigger picture. and let me know in the comments, what do you think it means to live on this pale blue dot? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking videos. Let's keep the conversation going. Yeah. So, as soon as I can get a full Descript. A story. Oh, wow. As soon as oh, wow, we're past 6. Hang on. Past 6. That means we gotta start. Hang on. Here we go. Hello. How are you today? Hopefully you're having a great day. I'm having a okay day. Tonight, well, let's see. Pretty much everything I talk about in some way relates to the world that our grandchildren get to inherit. So, with that in mind, tonight's topic is take over the world. And we've got a few things lined up, bigger ideas that relate to grandchildren and taking over the world. So tonight's topic is what's happening to the Russian population. Well, we'll take a look. Tonight's video is by Warfronts. I totally encourage you to check them out. They are pretty awesome. I love their videos, and we'll take a look at this one right now. No. All right. Zoom in here. Russia's population problem by Warfronts. As you can see, very popular channel. Very well done. He puts out really quality content. I very much encourage you. I will be skipping over his in commercials because I don't have that on Twitch to play his commercials, so I'll skip over them. But I certainly encourage you to go that link and support this content author in any way you can. Here you go. Let's look at Russia's population problem.
There is a ticking time bomb with an ever-shortening fuse planted just beneath the country of Russia. For decades, it's been allowed to tick away, uninhibited, with no sign of resolution in sight. The consequences when it finally goes off will be catastrophic for Moscow. You see, Russia has a population problem. Poor Soviet-era policy and mismanagement since its collapse has led to a situation where the average Russian couple are not replacing themselves by having children. Adults are dying early, migration only acts as a partial solution, and hundreds of thousands of Russian men have become casualties in Ukraine. We're going to delve into the facts here and see if Russia's past and present is costing the Kremlin its future. Russia is running out of Russians. So, what are the facts on the grounds here? What kind of demographic crisis is Russia really facing? Well, Russia's population today stands at around 144 million people, and it's been that way since the 1990s. Russia for decades, alongside the USSR before it, used various strategies and tricks to stave off population decline and keep the number of people in Russia at a stable level. But as we've entered the 21st century, several factors that have been working against Russia have started to get worse, paving the way for a potential rapid decline in population in the near future. The yearly growth rate of the Russian population fell in the 90s and simply never recovered, and now those demographic issues are coming home to roost for the Kremlin. Today we're going to go into detail about how Russia's birth rate, its death rate, its level of migration, and the war in Ukraine are all contributing to future Russian population decline. In highly populated oblasts like Leningrad and Sevastopol, Russian women, on average, give birth to less than one child in their lifetimes. Reuters reports that the Kremlin described the crisis as, quote, a disaster for the country in 2024. Russian President Vladimir Putin has seemingly understood the scope of the issue for quite some time. In his inaugural 2000 address to the nation, Putin warned that Russia could become an enfeebled nation due to its population decline. In the 2010 census, it was recorded that 20,000 villages in Russia were completely abandoned, with another 36,000 housing fewer than 10 people, according to Al Jazeera. In 2022, the situation became so bad that President Putin reintroduced a Soviet-era medal to be given to mothers alongside a cash sum for those who gave birth to 10 children. It's fair to say that the Kremlin is clutching at straws. But what are the reasons for this decline? Just how did this situation get so feeble? The first, and one of the most important factors to look at in controlling a population's relative growth, is the birth rate. Russia has been suffering with a persistent difficulty in achieving higher birth rates ever since the Soviet era. The number of births in any country is known as the total fertility rate, or TFR for short. In order to maintain a population without increased migration, the TFR for a country needs to be around 2.1, according to the Atlantic Council, or AC, although Russia's higher than average adult mortality rate means that it may even need to be higher. Russia has not approached a TFR of 2.1 since around 1988, and this in large part contributes to Russia's consistent population decline. One reason for this is the legacy of Soviet policy. Russia in the Soviet era had less access to effective birth control, and there was a resistance among Russian men to adopt the use of condoms. But Simon, I hear you cry, surely that led to more pregnancies, and, well, you'd be right. But many of these pregnancies were unwanted, and with no other solutions, abortion was widely utilized. American economist Mare Feshbach was able to calculate that the Soviet-era abortion rate averaged 7 abortions per woman. Economics is also linked closely to birth rates. When a country is doing well and times are good, people have more kids because they are in a position to financially look after and raise them. When times are tough, misery consumes and there are already enough mouths to feed, which prevents prospective pregnant people from planning potential parenthood. Even in the Soviet era, many struggled to get by, which meant that the birth rate among certain sections of Russia has struggled for decades, and when pregnancy did occur, economic circumstances may have pushed women towards options like abortion instead. This economic issue, of course, did not get any better after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1990. The breakdown of the Warsaw Pact and the wider USSR disrupted decades-long economic linkages, supply chains, and cooperation agreements. Such economic insecurity only worsened the problem across the whole post-Soviet space, but especially in Russia. In the 1990s, the RAND Corporation reported the result of all these disruptions was the decline of the Russian birth rate to among the lowest on Earth, and abortion rates rising to among the highest. At the turn of the millennium, when Vladimir Putin came to prominence, the Russian TFR was 1.25, almost half of what the country would need to sustain its population. Ironically, the motherland wasn't a big fan of motherhood. Russia's TFR has continued to slump and drag. In 2006, Putin's rhetoric around the demographic crisis facing Russia turned into actual policies for the first time. At the time, the president, still in his first term, launched a national agenda to try and bring the birth rate back up again. The Kremlin prioritized and emphasized a program known as Maternity Capital. This offered incentives to women for the birth or adoption of another child, usually in the form of financial compensation. The funds would be paid to a family when the state-incentivized child turned 3 years old. The funds could be used for housing, the child's education, the mother's pension, and even assistance for children with disabilities. It might be the most progressive policy Putin ever produced. This has since been amended over time to include payments for a first child, as well as improving housing. This did encourage additional births among rural populations, but in urban populations, where the cost was higher and 70% of the population lived, it failed to make a dramatic impact. Russia's TFR did increase a little, though, and by 2007 it was 1.39. It even reached a peak of a staggering 1.8 in 2015, but this was owing to a larger number of Russian women reaching childbearing age and an economic boost in the form of high oil prices. But again, it didn't last. By 2021, the TFR was back to 1.49. In 2022, the Center for Eastern Studies claimed the Russian birth rate was at 9 per 1,000 residents, making it one of the lowest in the world. The Atlantic Council reported that by 2023, births reflected the lowest fertility rate in the past 2 or 3 centuries in Russia. The ongoing war in Ukraine, financial difficulties in Russia itself, and the increased misery that is born from that has ensured the birth rate is still declining. According to an October 2023 survey by Russian Field, Russians are pessimistic about the future. 43% expected their financial situation to worsen within the next year or two, while only 21% anticipated an improvement. Would you want to bring a child into the world with all of that uncertainty and economic difficulty? It's a choice a lot of Russians have declined. But there may be more consequence to Russia's population decline, and that's not how often Russians are born, but how often they die. It's not just the birth rate of a nation that is important in assessing its population projections. Arguably, more important is the death rate. As the higher the rate, the faster the population will decline, and the more measures need to be introduced to stop it, as well as the more births are needed to successfully offset it. But this isn't easy. Russia has been unable to solve endemic issues in the nation's public health system that have been contributing to a higher death rate for decades now. Throughout the life cycle of the Soviet Union and the Russian Federation, unhealthy diets and lifestyles, binge alcohol consumption and accidents have all contributed to higher than average mortality numbers. By the 1960s, Russia's high infant mortality and low adult life expectancy were outliers compared with most highly industrialized countries. Russia's toxic relationship with alcohol has long affected its population adversely. Former USSR Premier Mikhail Gorbachev's anti-alcohol campaign in the late 80s generated a brief reprieve where life expectancy increased, but it didn't have a long-lasting legacy. And in the late 1990s, the RAND Corporation reported that Russia was still experiencing unusually high death rates from non-natural causes, many of which were related in some way to alcoholism. When President Putin was first elected at the turn of the millennium, Russian men aged 18 to 64 were dying at 4 times the rate of European men, according to the Atlantic Council. Meanwhile, Russian women were dying at about the same rate as European men. Statista shows that the Russian life expectancy for men has never even gone above 68, whilst Russian women's rate has never risen above 80. Both are below their counterparts in other industrialized parts of the world. The AC also states that Russia's TFR dropped back to 1.5 by 2019 as Russia's COVID response resulted in the highest per capita death rate among industrialized nations. Even in 2022, and not taking into account the Ukraine conflict, Russian men die at twice the rate of European men. Russian men die, on average, 6 years sooner than in Bangladesh, another nation which has faced immense financial hardship. So, the birth rate has plummeted, and Russia's death rates are some of the highest of their near peers in the entire world. So, how do you remedy a situation like that? Is Russia's population doomed to slowly wither away to nothing? Well, not exactly. Moscow does have a few tricks up its sleeve to slow the decline. One of those tricks: migration. Another key factor that influences a population's growth and decline is its net migration, which just means the number of people coming into the country to live and work minus the number that leave. Russian economic issues that began with Gorbachev's perestroika continued into the 1990s, which alongside higher mortality and fewer births led to significant emigration out of Russia. The collapse of the Soviet Union spurred a massive population relocation, where those with different ethnicities to Russia left for their newly created homelands, especially in Central Asia. This reorganization also led to an immigration crisis in Russia proper, as Russians who were in other parts of the Soviet Union returned to the motherland. Data from the Russian State Statistics Service, Goskonstat, indicate legal immigration peaked at 1.147 million people in 1994 and declined each year thereafter, shrinking to 350,900 in 2000 and just 70,000 in 2004. These declining numbers and the ongoing demographic issues weren't exactly a secret, as we saw from RAND's 1997 report. This makes the Russian government's choice to adopt a highly restrictive legal migration law in 2002 all the more baffling. This law came even despite Putin's comments on the demographic crisis just 2 years before. The remigration did largely offset the population loss in the 90s, despite huge hits to public health and the economy, otherwise dragging it down, but it could not last. There were only so many Russians living in former Soviet republics that chose to come home. By 2005, though, it was clear this wasn't working, as the number of those returning to Russia was diminishing each year on average. This may have later prompted Putin's various policy attempts to bring the birth rate back up. It's not simply a question of ensuring enough people come into the country, however, but also the number of people who've left. Even before the war in Ukraine began, Russia had been experiencing a significant brain drain, a phenomenon where educated people in a population leave a country en masse to seek a brighter future elsewhere. Educated Russians were choosing to leave in favor of work in places like the US, Europe, and even China. 3 places that prospectively offer higher salaries and better quality of life for the educated. The Atlantic Council reports that just before the war, Valery Falkov, Russia's Minister of Science and Higher Education, told Putin that the number of scientists in Russia was declining. shrinking. Nikolai Dolgushkin, the Russian Academy of Sciences chief scientific secretary, reported that emigration by scientists had increased from 14,000 in 2012 to 70,000 in 2021. Russia was the only developed nation where the number of scientific personnel was shrinking rather than growing. This is a far cry from the thousands of dedicated and intelligent Soviet scientists committing their work and lives to the USSR in years gone by. Russia has had to increasingly turn to migration in order to keep the economy going as the Russian population continues to falter. In the late 2010s and early 2020s, there was a dramatic increase in the number of Russian passports issued to foreigners, from around 269,000 in 2018 to a record 735,000 in 2021. This suggests that the Kremlin currently treats naturalization as a method to fill demographic gaps. However, this too has failed to address the core issue of population decline. It will not make people live longer or have more children by itself. The Center for Eastern Studies stated that since 2020, positive net migration no longer compensates for the natural population decline in Russia. It is no longer enough to simply bring more people in. This will have long-standing consequences for Russia's demography as a whole, as the more non-ethnic Russians brought in to bridge the employment gap, the less dominant the Russian diaspora becomes over time. This is a lose-lose situation for the Kremlin, and in 2022, a certain conflict made the issue of migration a whole lot worse. Of course, we're yet to talk about the 3-day special military operation-sized elephant in the room, and that, of course, is the ongoing war in Ukraine. As you might imagine, the number of Russian soldiers, conscripted or otherwise, who have been killed in the fighting is growing daily. This is naturally exacerbating the demographic crisis that Russia is facing at home. The USA puts the total number of killed and wounded Russians at around 315,000. The UK's Ministry of Defence puts the number at 450,000, and the Atlantic Council goes as high as 500,000, as corroborated by French intelligence. If you want to know more about how these figures are calculated, take a look at our Counting the Dead videos on this channel. Heavy casualties in Ukraine means a smaller population of Russians will have to fill those gaps in the economy by taking up jobs vacated by now deceased or wounded soldiers. Russia's unemployment rate is already very low due to the war and existing crisis, and the economy may be forced to shrink in order to accommodate having fewer workers. The consequences of the war isn't solely placed on the soldiers, however, when it comes to demographic problems. Women in Russia are choosing to forego having children, and women themselves are also being sent to fight in Ukraine in small numbers, mostly from prison populations. What's more, hundreds of thousands of young and educated Russian citizens have left the country in order to avoid being conscripted by Moscow, further contributing to a severe demographic decline. It's hard to know just how many potential soldiers have left Russia in the mobilization panic. The Atlantic Council reports that as many as 700,000 Russians are currently living in Dubai. If that is any indicator of the wider trend, well over 1 million Russians may be currently living outside of their nation. In 2023, the Atlantic Council stated that the number of people trying to return to Russia was the lowest in a decade, with mobilization being a likely deterrent. The Kremlin appears to have tried several strategies in order to enlist as many soldiers as possible, whilst also trying not to damage ethnic Russian populations too much. And so where are Russians getting the majority of their soldiers? Rural areas, of course. Non-ethnic Russians appear to be targeted for conscription more than ethnic Russians, as Central Asians working in Russia have also been rounded up and sent to join the front. The AC states that a study of the Uzbek community in Russia reports that many Uzbeks have been arrested for minor or contrived offenses and sentenced to elaborate prison terms, often of 15, 20, or even 25 years. Once in prison, they are offered the Wagner option of volunteering to fight in Ukraine. Many likely take the offer, seeing it as the only choice to hopefully survive and return to their lives once the war is over. This is a double-edged sword for the Kremlin, as whilst it doesn't put as many ethnic Russians, Moscow's priority, in harm's way, non-Russian birth rates are higher, especially in more religious communities like Chechnya and Orthodox regions. Utilizing the few people whose birth rates in Russia is actually above the rate of replacement doesn't seem overly sensible in the middle of a demographic crisis. But there is a war on. The soldiers have got to come from somewhere. Moscow clearly recognizes the requirement for balance between the military crisis in Ukraine and the demographic crisis at home. Men with 3 or more children are exempt from being conscripted to fight by Russian law, which will have encouraged couples with 2 children to have a third and somewhat offset that decline. However, given the propensity for the Russian military to target almost anybody for recruitment from the ages of 18 to 70, it's hard to know how much this is actually upheld in practice. The Russians really will take anybody they can get. One way to make up the number of soldiers is with prisoners, as we've seen in the Wagner Group strategy. This recruitment pool has continued to be used after the death of Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin and the integration of Wagner into the Russian armed forces. Ironically, those who had originally made the deal of bullets for freedom served their 6 months in the military and were dutifully released, whilst many non-criminal recruits have been fighting continuously in Ukraine for years now. Many of their contracts not set to end until the war does. We have also seen soldiers' wages in Russia continue to steeply increase as fewer people take the gamble to risk their lives for a financial incentive. The Kremlin is getting desperate. It's not just from more fringe groups inside of Russia where soldiers are conscripted, but outside Russia as well. The AC reports that individuals from Nepal, Syria, and India have been recruited to work in factories or as guards at various venues in Russia. After they arrive, their passports are confiscated and they are sent to fight in Ukraine. What choice do they have so far from home with no passport and no way to defend themselves? In addition to higher wages, prison offers, and straight-up kidnapping people from other countries, another inducement to attract foreign fighters is the offer of Russian citizenship. If these commitments are honoured, the result will be to add more non-Russians to the country's population who fought alongside it and therefore, in theory, share similar cultural values. Although we cannot imagine how having Russian citizenship is in any way advantageous right now, considering it's a one-way ticket to the front. Perhaps desperate enough economic migrants from Central Asia would make the journey in hope of providing a better future for their families once the war is over. However, even this may not be overly enticing, considering that one may well be able to move to Russia post-war with a similar result through employment rather than getting bombed and shot at. The demographic crisis is not going away. Russia will still need the workers post-war. Migrants are not stupid, and many may have seen the writing on the wall when war broke out. According to the Center for Eastern Studies, there are half as many foreign workers in Russia in 2023 as there were in 2021. It does also represent another demographic issue with the war in Ukraine, as able-bodied working men are being made casualties in the thousands every month, so the Kremlin must accept higher levels of immigration in the short term in order to fill those gaps in the economy. But Russia has been on this path for more than a decade. In 2014, when Russia illegally annexed Crimea, it added 2.4 million people to the Russian population, at least by the Kremlin's own figures, but this limited the natural labor pool that already flowed into Russia from Moldova and Ukraine. As a result, after 2014, labor migration in Russia was limited to mostly just 5 Central Asian countries. In 2023, half of Russia's labor migrants came from Tajikistan alone. So why do this? Why, in the middle of a demographic crisis, did Vladimir Putin choose to start a military conflict with a neighbor which only made said crisis a million times worse? Well, there are a few explanations. The first being that big bad Vlad thought Russia would easily win. Lest we forget, the special military operation was only to last 3 days, with the toppling of the Zelensky regime, the capture of Kiev, and the integration of Ukraine into the Russian motherland. If handled successfully, it would have added 38 million more people to the country with barely a shot fired. Putin was led to believe that the Ukrainians would welcome the Russian invaders with open arms as liberators. So, them choosing to take up arms against those forces so effectively definitely proved a shock. This means that whilst invading Ukraine may have been seen from the outset as a demographic crisis solution, the extension of the war has only exacerbated the problem. Putin's rhetoric at the start of the war was that Ukraine was Russian, its citizens were Russian, and therefore it should be a part of Russia. So adding nearly 40 million Russians to the declining population would be an easy way for the Kremlin to go some way to fixing their demographic crisis. But Putin lost that gamble when Ukraine rallied. They were Ukrainian, and they did not want to join Russia. It may also be possible that Putin wasn't totally misled, but saw the writing on the wall. As we've already covered, Putin started talking about Russia's demographic crisis as far back as in 2000, almost a generation ago. Since then, the population has continued to decline, birth rates have decreased, death rates are high, migration is low, and none of Putin's policies implemented were able to stop the rot, only slow it for a while. Putin could have taken one look at the sliding downward trajectory of the Russian population crisis in 2022 and knew that drastic action was required. Putin himself was 70 years old at the time, likely thinking about his legacy in Russia and alongside preconceived delusions of grandeur and a desire to be a hero who returned glory to Mother Russia. Turns out he couldn't seize a trick in Kiev, let alone the real thing. The population crisis was only going to get worse, and Putin was only going to get older. So when 2022 rolled around, it may have been a case of, if not now, then when? The irony, of course, is that Putin's legacy has been damaged by the war. In trying to do something drastic to fix the demographic crisis, he has inadvertently accelerated it. This of course, has come with huge consequences. The Russian population is an aging one, and there already were not enough young Russian people to take care of the elderly and run Russian society before the war began. The war, the migration of Russians, and the destitution that communities have been left in only stands to ensure two things for the foreseeable future. This problem is not going to go away, and it's not going to get better for the Kremlin. But what are the consequences of Russia's population crisis? We talk about this crisis like it's a big deal. The Kremlin and even Putin himself seem to agree. So what exactly has the Russian state been trying to avoid here? So what does all of this mean for the future of the Russian Federation? Well, the prognosis isn't good. Putin's choice of timing for military aggression in Ukraine might have reflected an understanding that Russia's demographic situation would not improve in the next 2 decades. But indeed, the war is turning a crisis into a catastrophe. Russia's situation is particularly challenging. Between the birth rates, death rates, migration rates, the brain drain, and the war, policy by itself might not be enough to fix it. The RAND Corporation questioned in 1997 how a shrinking working age population will support a growing number of elderly Russian citizens. It's a generation later, and that's no longer a question. It's a reality.
Hey, Judge. Hey, thanks for hanging out. Cool. Yeah, just going over the big probs for Russian grandchildren. Yeah. Yeah, Russia's not in a good spot and may never, ever be the same again.
Especially with swaths of working-age Russian men being sent to die in Ukraine. The Center for Eastern Studies has stated that the decline in Russia's fertility rate since the war is set to stabilize, and that there is no indication that the war will or has caused a decrease in total Russian fertility numbers. But this isn't just about the war, which, whilst consequential, is dwarfed by decades of failed policy and inaction as the sands of time slowly trickle down the hourglass. Russia's population, like many others in industrialized nations, is set to shrink. The Economist remarked that the Russian population would drop by almost 15 million people by 2050. UN projections for 2100 are even worse, with Russia on the high end predicted to be about 112 million people, on the low end 74 million, which is around half of what it is today in as little as 75 years. That's 3 generations, a dramatic decrease in a very short time. Now, the world population is also set to decrease by 2100 by around 20%, but Russia's decline will be at least.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they are choosing to refrain from having kids. It's that was in the U.S. as well for some similar and different reasons. Yeah, although I don't know how much of this you've seen, but it's after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1989, their fertility rate dropped to half of what it was supposed to be. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. All right. I'll just let it roll here. Yeah, their death rate is, the hospitals are
25%
bad.
of not 50. Russia and the future leaders of the Russian Federation have an important choice to make that will impact the future makeup of Russia as we know it. Either policy is changed for the better, public health improves drastically, and the life expectancy of the average Russian joins the rest of the developed world, or there will need to be a way to naturalize non-Russian citizens as Russians en masse. Putin's gambit in Ukraine to do this failed. It cannot be done by force. Russia will have to entice people to it. But that's easier said than done. Wages in Russia are low compared to its counterparts. The economy only stands to shrink further as the population does. Russia would have to offer something that it isn't offering right now to really make a difference. But this will have its own consequences too. Ramping up migration will change the ethnic demography of Russia over time. Just slapping a citizenship test on an Uzbek, a Tajik, or a Kazakh and labeling them a Russian doesn't necessarily make it so. It doesn't erase their cultural heritage, upbringing, or perspective on the world. Russia is running out of Russians. Making more is not easy. What's more is that the demographic groups best matching Putin's August 2022 decree advocating preservation and strengthening traditional Russian spiritual moral values are Russia's non-Russian populations. What Putin is searching for amongst his people already exists, with minority areas of Russia not experiencing the same population issues as ethnic Russian areas are. But to Putin, these minorities are not Russian in the classical sense. He cannot prioritize them over the ethnic Russian population or potentially risk the most important thing of all to him, his regime security. The minorities in Russia have cultures that are distinct. They have languages and traditions that do not match the current Russian status quo. But if Putin wants to bring his population growth rate back into the black, he may have to strike a deal with Central Asian populations and Russian minority groups like the Tatars, Dagestanis, and Chechens. Russia will almost certainly have to be ethnically less Russian and more religiously diverse if the population is to recover. Putin may need to incorporate what is working for them into the rest of Russia or face a continued population collapse that will be as severe as it would be devastating. For the future, Russia's population will not only be smaller, but also older, more fragile, and less well-educated, making it harder to build sustained growth. It may well spell the end of Russia as one of the heads of the geopolitical table as their capability and economic population shrinks. Many countries will face a decline in their population, but not many will be facing the sheer scope of issues in terms of demography that Russia will. Many more may grow to surpass it in time too. It remains to be seen to what extent Russia will decline, but unless drastic changes are made in the near future, that decline to some extent is almost inevitable, and that could make Vladimir Putin a very dangerous man indeed.
Yeah, so, with Russia losing, well, in the 89, and after 89, fertility rate dropped, hospitals, we're underfunded, death rates are high, country has a high death rate from alcoholism. Just not good. Everybody that got a brain or has any education has left Russia. And they're losing, guys, all the time. So, I don't know. It's not going to be good. I just hope the Ukrainians can hang on. So, let's look at our schedule. I did make a change. Tomorrow, I was going to do a Woman's Truth, and I came across... Oh, you can't see that. Let's go over that. Okay. So, tomorrow, we're going to have a PhD in Men. How to Get What You Want from a Man by Psychax. And that's a Woman's Truth. So, should be interesting. Tomorrow. Then we're going to do Relationship Truth on Thursday, a recap on Friday, and so on. I don't know if you're still there, Judge. This is, as soon as I can get my Descript account, I'm going to put this out, as well as some videos like this, and would love your feedback. Check it out. I'll go away. Put me away. There we go. Do I have volume?
Imagine everything you've ever known, every friend, every family member, every triumph, and every heartbreak existing on this tiny, pale blue dot. This photograph, taken by Voyager 1 in 1990 from 3.7 billion miles away, is a humbling reminder of our place in the vastness of space. But how often do we really pause, think about what it means to live here, to be human, and to understand our place in the cosmos? On this speck of dust, suspended in a sunbeam, all of human history has unfolded. Every dream, every discovery, every conflict, and yet, most of us live our lives experiencing just a fraction of what's out there. our perspective limited by what we see, hear, and feel in our immediate surroundings. Think about it. From the moment we're born, our experience of the world is profoundly limited. We arrive on this planet at a specific spot, into a particular culture, and with the baggage, both good and bad, that our families pass down to us. We grow up seeing the world through the lens of that one tiny sliver of existence. And while we might feel like our perspective is the perspective, the truth is it's just one of billions. No one sees the full picture, not on their own. This is why science, philosophy, and literature are so important. They allow us to transcend those limits, to glimpse realities beyond our own, and to understand the world is far more vast and complex than we can ever fully grasp. Here's the paradox. Even with all this knowledge, our brains are wired to divide the world into us and them. Neuroscience shows that when we see someone from our in group, a family member, a friend, or someone who shares our identity, get hurt, our brain lights up with empathy. But when it's someone not in our in group, that part of our brain has very little response. We don't just see them as different, we see them as less than human. This mindset has fueled countless conflicts from personal disputes to wars, all stemming from the same primitive instincts. But when we step back, when we look at this pale blue dot, those divisions seem insignificant. On this tiny speck, we are all the same. We're on a fragile boat hurling through the void together. Here is something else to consider. Everything we think, feel, and do is shaped by our biology. Our brains are powerful, but they're still part of the body. When you're happy, sad, or angry, those emotions aren't just abstract ideas. They're chemical reactions governed by hormones, neurons, and electrical impulses. This means that being human is a biological experience as much as it is a conscious one. Our desires, our fears, even our ability to love and connect are all deeply rooted in the physical reality of being alive on this planet. Understanding this can help us be more compassionate towards ourselves and others because at the end of the day, we're all governed by the same biological rule. So, what does all of this mean? It means that while we may feel small in the grand scheme of the universe, we have the tools, science, philosophy, and empathy to expand our perspective and connect with something larger than ourselves. It means we have the ability to rise above the divisions that biology and instinct have hardwired into us. This pale blue dot is our shared home. And maybe, just maybe, if we remember that, we can move through the world with a little more understanding, curiosity, and kindness. If this resonates with you, take a moment to share this video with someone who might need a little reminder about the bigger picture. And let me know in the comments, what do you think it means to live on this pale blue dot? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking videos. Let's keep the conversation going.
Hey, Metal. How you doing? Yeah, throwing down some serious stuff. Yeah. How you doing, Metal? Yeah, I'm gonna do that put that out as soon as I actually get a Descript account. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, I don't know how much of that you had watched, but yeah, basically, we're on the pale blue dot. Oh, you just got here? Cool. Um, I don't know if it's something I was testing out. I'm gonna probably make, like, all of my content is kind of all about the world we're leaving, grandchildren. So that's what I'm doing. Hi. That's what this really is about, is trying to come up with how we're more the same than different. Yeah, that's what I've been up to. Yeah, how we're more the same than we're different. And I'll show you the schedule that I've been kind of going by. So, eh, on Monday I did Man's Truth, which is about master masculine vulnerability. Did that. Tonight we did a video. Oh, weird thing on my screen there. That's kind of weird. So we did the Russian population problem, how they're going to have half their population by 2100 because they're running out of Russians. So then we got Wednesday, Woman's Truth, a PhD in men. How to get what you want from a man by PsychX. And on Thursday, I'm doing Relationship Truth, the 3 requirements, good relationship by the School of Life. Friday, we'll play the whole week's stuff. Yeah, it's way worse than that. I'll recap. I'll give you a bit recap here. So Saturday, the 4 quadrants, a map of all knowledge, human experience, and we're gonna go and try and introduce a concept on Sunday of remembering best efforts instead of tearing everything down because some perceived mistake. Yeah, this video
Elite migration.
Is by Warfront, and what it goes into is since 1989, when the Soviet Union collapsed, it caused the birth rate to plummet to about half of what it needed to be from 1990 onward, coupled with no funding for hospitals, and the death rate tanked. So their death rate really high, and really high due to non-natural causes, excluding the war, even just in Russia. And then they had a huge migration out of the country after they started the war in Ukraine. They've lost their number of scientists has left their scientific community. Basically, they have a huge brain drain, and their migration, instead of having people having to migrate in, everybody's jumping ship. So where have they left to? Oh, like the scientists and stuff have gone to primarily 3 countries: the U.S., Europe, and China. That's what the report, video was saying. So Germany, yeah, I guess they've gone into Europe. They mentioned they've pretty much gone to Europe. Well, they just list Europe, so maybe Germany is counted in there, I guess. I assume. Yeah. So they estimate
hang on, let's see if I can find the punchline. With all the factors, yeah, United Nations scenarios project Russia's. Oh, yeah, hang on. I'll go live. I found it in the video. So, the punchline: United Nations scenarios project Russia's population in 2100 to be between 74 million and 112 million, compared with the current 146 million. The most recent UN projections are for the world's population to decline by 20% by 2100. The estimate for Russia is the decline of 25 to 50%. And they are really, really trending more on that 50%. Unless they make a lot of babies soon. So, 3 generation, no Russia. Current pace. Well, a Russia on par. What country was it they mentioned? Forget, that also has the same economic and issues. I forgot what country they mentioned. On Canada being the 51st state, well, funny. Okay, I'm of two minds, and I'll give you my economic business sense idea. I've always thought, from an economic standpoint, it would be more advantageous for Canada to be part of the U.S. That said, however, there are some pretty significant cultural differences. The first is that, all those invading British dudes, the way back, where do you think they came from? I know we weren't actually Canada until 1867, but yeah, that was before that. So there's that, especially as you go towards the east of the country. There's quite a large what they have loyalist days. I don't know. I don't live there. I don't know, but I know I've visited and seen these parades and stuff. And on the other end of the country, you got British Columbia. Ooh, they're like California. BC is actually owned by British Royals. Yeah, they're different. I lived in BC, so I can say that. It's kind of, it's not really the crown, because we call everything the crown. Anything basically the government owns is called crown land. So if you've seen any signs or anything about crown land, that's what they're talking about. The royals themselves, I don't know. Yeah, Victoria's gorgeous. Yeah, I've never been there. I've been in BC, but not down to Vancouver, Victoria. I know it's. I've certainly considered it for retiring. Move over there. Hey, warmer. And it's
Very nice. Yeah, it's very, and I think the culture of BC is kind of in line. Hey, Asian, in Victoria times, and has their own property and church they use. Oh, I didn't know that. Did not know that. I know when the Royals, and they've only visited here in the city I live in a few times in my lifetime, maybe 3 or 4. Okay, yeah, something like that. Hey, Caberos, how ya doing? Yeah, the Royals have a house, I think, in each province. I think because they stay, I believe, with the governor general of the province. I could be wrong on that, but I think they do. I think because I know each province maintains some kind of governor general that's linked to the Royals because they still have to rubber stamp stuff, which really I question rather strongly. Because if they ever said no to anything, I think they'd be hung. But that's personal opinion. I can't imagine if oh what gee, I'm so used to Queen Elizabeth that thinking about King Who's face. I keep forgetting. What was it? Charles. Chuck. Hey, Chuck. I should have checked. We must be changing our money. We had the Queen on all of our money. I haven't seen anything with Charles on it. Maybe they're gonna wait till he dies. I don't know. Maybe wait till one of his kids is king and we'll change money. Or not. Maybe we'll just get something else. Pierre Poilievre. Oh boy. Well, here's Canadian politics in a nutshell. We always just vote out the last guy. Unless they're doing a good job, then they stick around. And when way back with Harper, who is conservative, same party that Pierre Poilievre is, he, and conservative guy before him, what they do is they come in, cut all the conservatives, cut all the social programs, and balance the budget. Great. And then everybody gets pissed off and votes in the Liberals. And when they got in last time, I had a friend who was new to the country, and he asked me, "What do you think about Justin Trudeau?" And I said, "Well, he's going to implement a whole bunch of social program, and we're going to pay it off for the next 200 years." And yeah, that's about what happened. And, but Pierre Poilievre, I don't know. I don't know. There is just something about the guy. I don't know. I have zero thought on any of his policy, but other than I know the general plan, I've lived through it a few times. The interviews, he seems kind of almost Trump-like. A little, yeah, a little. He's got some issues. He's I was actually kind of surprised when he said that Canada didn't want to be 51st state, because I was expecting him, I was truly expecting him to try, well, what he's trying, but what I've seen is he's trying to capitalize on the same kind of sentiments that are happening in the US, but I'm not sure that we're facing the same issues so as the US. So I don't know if it's resonating as well. Kind of what I'm feeling when you talk to people and stuff. Yeah, so I mean, the other big party, oh, I can't remember his name. Singh, I think. NDP. They're a weird one. They've been a federal party for ever, but they've never been elected into federal government. They have been elected like at the provincial state level. They've got in there, but they've never got in federally. And the reason, what makes them so interesting, the New Democratic Party, is because if you read their constitution, they were actually the combination of a Labor Party on one side and a Communist Party on the other side. And they amalgamated. I don't know. Been around for years. I never vote. I've never voted for. Oh, I shouldn't say that. But that ain't happening. Yeah. So those are the three. There is a very small party, the Green Party. I don't quite agree with everything they say, but their leader is Elizabeth May. And as a politician, she is, like, I've seen her in debates and in every debate I've ever seen her in. She is brilliant. And but nobody, there's no, I think they got one seat and that's hers. So they're never being in charge anytime soon. But she's good. And if she was the head of, one of the other ones, like Pierre Poilievre, if she had to replace Pierre Poilievre or Trudeau, I would vote for her for sure. She's brilliant, but not, I don't know, she'd have to change some policies. But as a leader, really good. Yeah. Yeah, so that's Canada. What's news? What's happening? Next week on Tuesday, I also got something else that I found, if I can pull it up. My schedule. Next week on Tuesday. What did I have? I thought it was something interesting. Oh, yeah. And they take over the world. Yeah, gonna do another story from past. Take over the world. Do a expose on Mein Kampf. If you don't know what that is, it's been described as the most evil book ever to exist.
And it is the book that Adolf Hitler used to come to power. And yeah, it's an interesting book. I've never read it, but Mein Kampf, yes. Mein Kampf. Mein Kampf. It's, I remember, my dad actually got a copy of it and read it, and his synopsis was, wow, all these people died over this bullshit. No. Yep. So we'll take a look at it next Tuesday. See, tomorrow, what did I say? Oh, yeah. A PhD in men. How to get what you want from a man. Of course, it's woman's truth. And then relationships. And we'll do a recap on Friday. How's everyone doing? What's news? I know. I was playing the music there for a while, and I discovered, I don't know if you saw in the Discord, but the copyright strikes out of on YouTube are totally out of control. And I played, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 songs and just got copyright slam. Which, you know, fair enough. But it's why they got copyright slammed. None of the copyright things that I received were actually from the artists, the record labels, anything. It was from bots. So crazy. All bots doing copyright strikes. Crazy. Crazy, man. Yeah, so, well, hey, as long as everyone's here, I'll give you an update. Yeah, totally. It's, not only that, you can, the video that I posted there, the guy had a song already out, right? That he had published. And then what he did was he went and got an AI to make a copy of it so that it sounds really close. And then he put that up into Suno, which is the copyright thing. And then his original track got copyright strike because the AI that he uploaded later had the copyright. It's broken. Broken. Yeah, so see. So I went through the STAT program, which I forget what stands for, mood behavior, and found it really, really helpful. I'm actually thinking, maybe I should make a course out of their stuff. Really good. Ooh, what's this? Caballeros redeeming the fireworks. Ooh, thanks, Caballeros. Oh, and another one.
Woo! Oh, there's more. oh, oh, no! There's a flashbang. I see a flashbang in there somewhere. Hey, you son. Okay, where is it? It's coming. I know. I know it's coming. Ah! It's been a while. That's bright. Just okay. All right. I knew that. I knew it was coming. But oh, and beer. Thank you for the beer. Yeah, I need more. Yeah. Actually, I was doing really good. And then, well, long story. Basically, X was still controlling money, and I changed that. Yeah. So then came all kinds of accusation from her, which kind of made me spiral into the abyss. In fact, I did. Josh saw the episode where I was going to totally expose her for all the crap she did at her different jobs. And then I sat there and went, wait a sec. This is exactly how I wound up spiraling out of control before. This is not going to be good. So I just went, you know what? The worst thing, I sent her a text message basically saying the worst thing I can do to you is nothing. That's what I'm going to do. Nothing. Have a great life. Bye-bye. You can do and say whatever you want. I know it's true. So, yeah. So after I made that choice not to talk to her anymore, I feel a lot better back on my routine. And yeah, doing good. Yeah. Yeah. I had a pretty good holiday. Went over to I guess their in-laws' house. Had a nice dinner. Saw the grandkids. Yeah, it was good. And yeah. So, that's something else I've been doing. I've been messaging my grandchildren pretty regularly, almost every day. But yeah, so that's been good. Apparently, I've of course this stat program. Part of it is ongoing support, and my psychiatrist is recommending that I be on disability for another 6 months. So, my two trains of thought are first thing in the morning. I've been doing some AI engineering courses because I do have a background in computer science and doing some upgrading. And then I'm also trying to do content. I had a small setback over Xmas. Just kind of felt alone and drank more than normal and added gummies to mix. One of my proudest moments. Oh, hey. You know what? We're all a work in progress. Have grace for yourself. It's something that I have absolutely learned going through this program. Um, everyone has a different journey. Nothing's more right or more or less right. It's just we're people. We're all people. And yeah, pretty much me out of my mind in the mornings after we're recovering. Yeah. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, been there. Been on stream and been there. Yep. Yeah, I hear you. Absolutely. I stopped while I was in the stat program. I stopped taking any weed or booze or anything. I just stuck to the program. But then, Christmas came around and I was like, yeah, I'd kind of like something. So I got a bottle of Jack. It was really good. And I got some vape cartridges and enjoyed those. And I'll probably get, some more next month. Not, not. I don't want to go overboard, but just kind of. What is it called? Moderation. Moderation. That's what I'm going for. Although I have my moderation kind of tilted a couple times there, where but that was also with the X, where I was definitely super stoned a couple nights and fell completely off my routine there. But this week we're back, so hopefully we'll keep on trying. I know I'm trying to focus on bigger things, trying to focus on trying to focus on kids and grandkids and trying to make sense of this reality. Or second. Yeah. Yeah. So how are you doing now, Metal? Yeah, no, I was also talking with one of my cousins. He was in Afghanistan, and he's got some PTSD going on there. So yeah, So I was talking to him. He's doing. He had a bit of a challenge over the holidays. We were talking about it, and now I think he said he was getting involved in a program called the Silent Warrior or something. I don't know if that's a new group or what that is, but sounds interesting. Honor always having some next to me when I'm at PC. Yeah, I've primarily switched from pop. I got this Soda Stream for $35 in the Walmart, sale bin. And I've got a zero water. I filter the water and then I carbonate. And the Soda Stream there's a store just next door to me here that sells the SodaStream CO2 cartridges. If you hand one in, they'll give you a new one for $19. So and that lasts a month. So that's a lot cheaper than pop. And better for you. Yeah. I guess so. I guess that's yeah. I guess that's why. I guess they can be refilled. They're steel cylinders, so yeah. I guess that makes sense. Hmm. The cotton burns, so can't be reused. The cotton. I am confused. Gibbers? In a CO2 cart? Yeah, it's I don't know. Can I take? I wonder if I can grab mine. I've only got one. It's in things. So, and you kind of break the seal when you put it in. So I'm not sure I can take it out. There's cotton at the bottom inside the holes. On the CO. Oh, where the gas gets vaporized. CO2 carts for BB guns is THC. Gotcha. Gotcha, Chimeras. CO2 carts. Yeah, we used to have CO2. I used to have a CO2 pellet gun. It was a pistol. Man, that thing had a lot of power. They're aluminum. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those CO2 carts are aluminum. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they are aluminum. Or, I don't know. I'm assuming. I assume. So, of course, the question. I haven't been playing anything. Because, yeah, not that I don't want to. I do. But I am curious. I've been seeing some things about Ark. I haven't been keeping up on it. They changed the map schedule. Is that what happened? Yeah. Something about I don't know. Here that I purchased was as a terrible. Yeah, I've had terrible vape cartridges. Blue raspberry lemonade. Got a metallic sour flavor. Yeah, I've had some vape parts that are pretty brutal. For taste. Was it resin? No. I've never tried resin. Oh, really? Oh, resin usually tastes like that. I didn't know that. I did not know that. I've never tried resin. I've been curious, but I've never tried it. Never had the spare dineros to invest in the. I think. What do you need? Do resin? You need some kind. You need some equipment. I think, right? Shows how much I know. But I think you need a thing that heats the resin. A nail? Oh, a press. Okay. Yeah, and so I don't have anything like that. I do have. Oh yeah. Wait a sec. I have a whole bunch of weed sitting in my drawer. I forgot.
Carts. Oh, I didn't know they had resin carts, just like the THC ones. I didn't know that. Really, eh? Have to check that out. But I switched from, I was using a weed vaporizer that just heats the weed until it releases the THC, which was really easy on the lungs. But I have some very low THC weed that I bought that I think I've still got like, I don't know, half an ounce or an ounce sitting in my bottom drawer that I haven't used because I kind of forgot about it. I switched to carts because I found them just easier all around than the THC vaporizer. But the carts, now a little hard on the lungs, but the vaporizer is pretty easy, pretty smooth. Yeah, which reminds me, maybe I'll spark one up. I just realized I got weed. Hang on. Let's check this out. I have an Uni Pro Wolf mod. It's an adjustable vaporizer. Oh, really? Cool. This is the one I have. It's a Zeus Arc GT. So it's not the newest model. It's a little few years old. I'm just seeing. Gee, I'm looking. Ooh, that weed's looking a little dry. I don't know if you can see that. A little dry. All right. This could be like lighting up hay. I don't know. Stand by for flames. See here. Not catchy. Well, we're doing this. Hey, let's maybe do some tunage. Does this work? Can we? Yeah, we'll throw a little tunage in there. Yeah, just a little background. And I'll just try and... Wow. Now I remember why I stopped doing this. What a big mess. Gotta get my mess. I remember how I used to do this. Now I remember. I go ahead and I'm cleaning out my... All right. Okay. Apparently, the cartridge. There's a cartridge in here. Yeah. It's stuck. There we go. Yay! I think I need a new one of those. No problem. Pretty sure I got a button. I know I do get emails from where I actually got this from, called T-Vape. They do very cool stuff. They've got very cool vaporizers. They're out of Toronto. T-Vape. They're the ones that do the videos about, like, I don't know if you ever... Hey, you know what? Let me show you this. Hey, why not?
I'm in the deep dark zone of having all my stuff with warnings. Let's I don't know if you ever seen this. What the heck? See if I can find the video of this vaporizer. Okay. Go there. Because what's cool is they show what it looks like. If I can find the video. For various vaporizers that they've gotten a hold of, they'll test it to show how much I'm trying to think of what you call it, like the volume of extraneous stuff you get when you're using the vaporizer. They use a sealed environment, which I can't seem to find. Huh. I'm just looking here. Here, I'll show you what I'm looking at so you can see. It's on their site. They usually have a video showing that experiment that they did, but I'm not seeing it. Huh. I'm not seeing it. Other stuff, dry herb. Yeah, I guess they don't have it up anymore. But it was really good. Sorry, can't find it. I would have thought it would be on their YouTube channel, but I don't see it. Thinkable vape, ultra powerful, blah 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 blah. Where is it? Wow. Didn't realize they put out so many videos. Okay. Cool. Did you ban your... Did I ban her? No. Intentionally. Same as Facebook. My goal, of course, is to live the best possible life I can. Oh, she wants to watch it? She's more than one welcome to participate, but if she comes out with a bunch of her false accusation, well, gonzo. In fact, so, okay. Let's talk about this. Hang on, wait a sec. I gotta find the cartridge here. Hold on. And I don't remember. What the hell did I have? Okay, no. Ah, there they are. New one. Okay. So, way back in like April? I don't know. Earlier than that, maybe. I was getting a payout from my vacation pay. She was, because honestly, if I'm honest, when we split up, I was totally, I think, mentally not really capable of fighting or doing anything. So I didn't change any of the banking or anything. She was in charge of that and looked after that. I had an allowance, even though I'd moved out almost 2 years ago. Anyway, so last, I don't know, February or something, I was going to get a payout of $9,000 from my vacation pay for the year. Right? So I knew that was coming, and we sat down to talk about our agreement, right? So right at the start, I brought this up. I said, okay, this is going to come in. And her response was, you know what? That's yours, vacation pay. You take it. I went, thank you. You've come, in my mind, I thought, you've come to the table honestly and fairly. Cool. Okay. So then, as we were going through assets and debts, she suddenly realized that there was no way to divide the assets evenly and her keeping the stuff. So she started to break down in the meeting. And I said, you know what? You're fair with me for this in good faith. You know, you said I could have this. No problem. You go ahead. Condo's yours. Car's yours. Whatever. All yours. And she went, okay, thank you. That's great. So everything was fine until the money came in. And when it came in, she yanked it. And I still not in a very good mental place, so I didn't push it. And then about a month later, instead of giving me the money that we were supposed to, he gave me $3,000, something like that. Now, there had already been $2,000 expenses, so I was expecting $4,000 more. And she decided that she was not going to do that. What she then decided was that she was going to require me to sign the agreement before she gave me the money. Okay, so she was supposed to come up with the agreement. No agreement. Okay, I had her notes from the meeting. So when I was feeling better in December, I decided, okay, I'll create the agreement myself, if I can do that, because I have the notes. I did that. Of course, sent it to her. Yeah, she wasn't suddenly very happy with that at all. Yeah. So then began conversation. And then when I have no idea where she got some of her stuff. If I get into it, it gets really bizarre. But it's like, wait a second. This is what we agreed to. So then, as we were going through this conversation, and I was pointing out, okay, yes, this happened, but if you remember, this happened after, which took care of that. And this happened, and that took it. Anyway, so as I, explained all of her situations, started coming out with accusation like I cheated on her, which I never did. And that just started me down the spiral of I want an apology. Then we're gonna talk about this $4,000 and tried to figure a way to get that to happen. And then as I sat there all stressed out thinking about this, you know what? I'm not spiraling back into the former shell of my self, getting stressed out because of this. I'm not doing it. So I just sent her a message. I'm not talking to you anymore. And yeah. Now, what I'd like to do, hang on. I gotta jettison YouTube. Good night. YouTube is, and you'll see why in a minute. I'm gonna kill YouTube here. Disable channel. YouTube.